Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Hi, Ross. G'day, Wayne. Yeah, all's good in Mike's world, thank you. Hey, Shane, good to see you here, buddy. G'day, Gary. How are you, mate? Anyway, let's get things kicked off on what, again, is another interesting day on markets. Just if there is ever a day that isn't interesting, we'll start by just sort of reinforcing the key messages that you need to know. Is that the opinions expressed here on this session are mine, not necessarily representative of gold markets, and so shouldn't be taken as such. And of course, this is delivered for educational purposes only, so please take that on board rather than it being direct advice to take trading action. You've got your own trading plans to make that happen. So let's get kicked off. Let's just have a look at what's coming across the news right now. We had a broad-based rally on Wall Street last night, and really right across the board. The Nasdaq was already looking positive as the session started and continued to outperform throughout the session. And really, that's there seems to be some positive vibe going on about the Nasdaq at the minute, possibly because it was more sold than perhaps some of the other indices, but certainly the last couple of days have shown a significant outperformance in that. Now, the US futures are interesting in that they are slightly to the upside. The Nasdaq, with the exception of the Nasdaq, which is slightly to the downside, they've come off their earlier highs in the Asian session a little bit, but Asian markets are following that strong US lead, looking positive at the moment. ASX, last time I looked, was up about 0.4% towards the highs of the session. Nikkei, very similar. Kospi up as well on the back of that tech move higher in the US. The US dollar index, if we move to the currency side of things, has been quite choppy during the morning. In fact, all of the FX pairs have been relatively choppy. We'll have a look at charts in a moment, of course, but it really failed to hold on to its gains earlier in the day yesterday, and so it's trading really around about neutral at this stage when last I looked. But that seems to be a moving target as well, and precious metals are holding sort of below or around key levels. Again, we'll have a look at that in a moment. Don't forget a couple of things going on this week. We'll talk about that later. On the data front, not a massive day today. We've got UK employment numbers, which could be interesting, obviously, from a GB pound point of view, which is looking at important levels on a couple of pairs. We've got some more US housing numbers. Probably the major market mover may be the Fed Chairman Jerome Powell is due to testify in front of Congress. This is a regular thing where he'll sort of give a little talk about economic outlook and what the Fed are doing, but also, of course, answer questions from the floor. So that's really where the news is at. Let's just put a little bit of meat behind those bones and look quickly at the futures contracts. You can see they're really quite sort of bouncy in terms of where they are now. We sort of started really quite positive across the board. I think that most of the indices were up around about that 0.2, 0.3% earlier on, but we've just seen a pullback in the Nasdaq particularly, and that's obviously impacted indirectly on the S&P 500. We can see the USD slightly positive today in Asian trading, and really against all currencies, the yen is probably the best placed against the USD, but look at the Kiwi, down almost 1%. Not sure what's moving that at this stage. There's been no significant data out of New Zealand which should have moved that, but there's a definite market sentiment to the downside on the Kiwi, and we'll check in on some Kiwi pairs in a moment. The Aussie also now starting to sell off a little, which is, again, really quite sort of interesting. Again, we're seeing these movements very early in the day. Usually we don't see this sort of degree of movement, that 0.3% higher until really European market open, until the Asian session has been done. and then we get follow through from the European markets. But at this stage, that's not insignificant. Look at gold and silver looking pretty flat. Crude oil or oil has come off its highs going forward, and so really looks as though it's possibly done its thing. Let me just move. And of course, we can see the 10-year note slightly to the downside, which means yield will be slightly to the upside, but that doesn't seem to be upsetting markets right now. And so really a bit of a mixed session to start the day. And the next hour is possibly going to be crucial. And then as we move into the European Open, you can see the European futures are pretty flat at the moment. That's at 0.01% to the upside, so about as near to neutral as you can possibly be. On the economic data front, as I said, really the major highlights are that UK employment number that's coming out in about 5 hours time. So around about, what was that, 5:30 p.m. actually 6 p.m. I think New Zealand Eastern time. Trying to do my quick maths. Just remember, we do change clocks on the 4th of April, and that's going to obviously impact times of webinars, but also some of this, some of the timings, etc. And again, just bear in mind that the US has already changed clocks, so it's one of those strange points in time where we're a little all over the place to what is the norm in terms of market opens across the globe. There's that new home sales. Not really, of all of the housing data that comes out of the US, new home sales is actually not the major market mover. You tend to find existing and pending home sales more significant, and there's the Fed Chairman Powell testifying later on tonight. Okay, so that's the data and the futures. Let's have a quick look at some charts and look at what this means to sentiment. Come back to Sonic Healthcare in a moment. So if we look at the US 500 daily, so there's the big candle yesterday, pretty neutral today in Asia, as we've said. If we just put the NASDAQ on there as well. There we go. So you can see we've had a couple of stronger sessions on the NASDAQ, but really we're looking to see if we've got any momentum at all to take us through that 13,184 level. Slightly down in Asia today. US dollar index, you can see how choppy this looks today. If we just put it on a 5-minute chart, you can see we were down, then up. And now we seem to have found a trading range over the last sort of 20-25 minutes or so. But certainly no appetite to sell USD in today's session. But you can see there where the highs from yesterday came down, recovered a little bit, but that's why we got that sort of reddish candle. If we look at gold and silver, there's the key level on gold we've had on that chart for some time at around about 1740. You can see we're trading below that at the moment after a weaker session yesterday, but looking at fairly triangular in terms of candle pattern. So really a smacking of market uncertainty a little bit. Silver actually looks as though it's broken a key level. This is looking weaker this morning. We again just put it on a 30-minute chart. You can see that level that we've put on the daily chart at 25.83. That's really been tested to the upside a couple of times, and we're selling off again. Just watch 25.39. If we break that, we could see ourselves or see that precipitating more selling and perhaps even a move down to $25, which, as you can see, there's been quite a lot of previous action around there. Let's just pop a little line on there so you can see it. But there's 25.06. So you can see how it was support there and support back in January. So that could be quite significant if we do get a move downwards. So for those of you either trading the commodity or any commodity related share CFDs, and that's quite interesting. Onto the currency pairs. There looks to be some strength in the euro across the board. We can see that strong candle yesterday, some follow through in Asia on the daily chart. If we pop it on an hourly chart, it looks quite interesting. We've got a pivot high that we hit during the session yesterday, which is possibly worth keeping an eye on. If we do break that sort of 119.45 level, we've got about 40 pips to the upside for short-term traders. So it looks as though there could be some action today. If we look at the Aussie US using the 200 MA as support on the daily chart, again, if we look short-term, you can see that sell-off that we talked about, that we saw in the futures contracts, just pulling us down. Around about 77 cents is the key level on this, which sort of corresponds to where that 200 MA actually is. Again, if we do break that, we could see a sort of move down towards this 76.35 level. So around about 60 odd pips in that. If we do get a break, it really requires patience on this pair. And the Kiwi, not a dissimilar picture. You can see we tried to hold on to, if we just put it on the 15-minute chart, we tried to hold on briefly to that 71.15, but looks as though we're really struggling to hold that level. Why is that level important? Well, if we look on a daily chart, you can see it was support earlier in the month, and in January we get a breakthrough here, and we could be down to the next key level, which is around about that 70.29 level. So quite a chunk down, about 90 pips down. So again, possibly look at that pivot low that we've just hit on this candle here. If we're going to close beneath there, the previous candle, but that's a rejection of an up move on that candle there. So really looking quite bearish on the Kiwi. Just looking at that against some other pairs. Let's look at the New Zealand yen first of all. You can see a similar pattern on the hourly chart. Again, that line is significant on the daily. You can see there, I put these on before just so you can see that. So again, looking quite bearish. This candle appears to be pretty important, as we had a rejection of a move up back through that support. It's trying to break through at 77.42 on the last 30-minute candle. But the euro, we talked about euro strength. We'll look at the euro yen. This is a 5-minute chart, so you can see we've pushed right hard up against this 129 or 130, let's call it, on the very short-term time frame. And again, if we just pop it back onto the daily chart for some indication of whether or how much relevance this has, well, if we do get a breakthrough, this is possibly, again, for short-term traders, a 45 pip move to the upside. Look at that strong candle we had yesterday, right across the board. The euro's looking impressive. If we therefore, perhaps, if the euro's looking good and the commodity-based currencies are looking weak, makes sense therefore to have a look at the euro New Zealand dollar. Very strong candle yesterday. If you caught that as it was happening, possibly even on the 4-hourly chart, a breakthrough there and you would have been in. Put it on a daily chart, you can see how this level that we're trading at now at 167.80 is really important. It was support here, it was resistance here, and it looks as though we're about to test to the upside again. So I'm flipping between this as our chart of the day. On the hourly chart, if we look at it, you can see that big move up. This candle could be important. May take a couple of candles to get a confirmed breakthrough of that. But the other one that caught my eye was the Euro GB pound. With that euro strength again now, we'll bring it up a little closer, put it on a line chart. So you can see a sort of double bottom type of formation at the bottom there, with around about 40 pips from top to bottom. And moving back up to what looks like a key level at around about 86.30. Okay, if we do break through that, again, this is really quite an aggressive trade, but You can see how it's looking in Asia today. I'll put it on the candles to give you more detail. So this key level that we mentioned on the daily chart looks important. And we'll just take it out a little bit. Why does it look important? Well, there is the test yesterday. There is the test on the 16th of March. So if we do move higher, we've got quite a move to the upside of possibly around about 33 pips on that. Now, this is potentially important in maybe 4 or 5 hours time once that UK employment number comes out. If that's softer than expected, we may see some further GB pound weakness, and of course with the euro markets open, there's obviously going to be some major interest in this as a pair. So there's a couple to keep an eye on, but we're planting our flag in the as our FX chart of the day in the euro Kiwi on a break of 167.90. Okay, looking at the for sure, we'll just put on the euro Aussie as well. More than happy, guys, for those of you who are newer, for you to suggest charts to have a look at. This also looks really interesting. Why it's less attractive perhaps than the euro Kiwi is we've got quite a lot of spikes going on here. I did have a look at these, so as I was sort of preparing this. So if we just put this on a line chart to take out some of the noise, you'd sort of get interested in this, possibly on a break of 154.60. You can see it with support here, resistance here, resistance there. If we put it on the candles, you'll see how it did test here and here. So this 154.60 looks interesting. If we put an ATR on this, just put a 14 ATR on it for the moment, then we've got a 17 ATR, so let's call it 18. So maybe 9 pips above that level at 154.60 would fit a trading plan or two, perhaps. Cool. Well, we can come back to any of the currencies that you want to have a look at. Oh yeah, for sure, we'll have a look at Aussie Kiwi, Joe. We should see some disparity in this, obviously, because we saw that we saw that sort of today's performance, and indeed, if undoubtedly a breakout on the daily chart that we saw yesterday. Let's bring this up a little bit. Okay, so you can see this is today's action. Now, there's just a couple of things here that will twitch me a little bit, or would make me just be a bit patient about this. Just put it on a put it onto a line chart. Again, you can see that resistance there. We did have a quick foray above that, but even if we do get a break, let's say we get a break above this level, we've got about 80 pips to the upside on there. So getting interested at this level. I'm just checking how many candles as well. Oh, so 4 or 5 candles on the daily chart. So maybe even this is the be even more patient. So a couple of things. If you're in this already, there could be a delay, or sorry, there could be a pause around this level at around 109. So it wouldn't be, it possibly wouldn't be a bad play to have a profit target underneath this if you're holding this for the long term. If you're holding this for the short term, you can see only 29 pips up to that. There's about 60 pips up to that level there. So if we pop it on an hourly chart, so we can get these lines in, that's the potential trade on a break of the pivot high from that. You can see we've failed to do that in this last hourly candle. There's that sort of 50 odd pips that would be there for the taking should it move up. So a close above that last candle's high at 108.71 might suggest that there's further buying in this. Wouldn't be surprised to see just a little bit of a pullback before we give that a good go again. But you can see the increased volume associated with this move higher. So the market is actually really quite supportive of this move up to date. So what happens with this candle? We've got 10 minutes to go. Could be important, but again, just be patient. Don't get the itchy trigger finger. Right, we'll just US yen. Did we not look at US yen? We'll pop that on anyway. Maybe skipped over it. So there's US yen. Would suggest this is now after this major move up over the, well, really since the beginning of February. Let's just pop it on a weekly chart to get context. So this level we marked on the chart previously at 109, about 109.30. It looked as though there was some previous action here, so it's not surprising to see it pause around this level, not only for the big move up, but also because of previous action around this place. We look here, there's a couple of things suggesting that this is going to be range bound for a while. First of all, obviously, we're bang smack in that range after testing that upside on 4 candles. You can see the signal line has gone over the MACD histogram line, which again suggests that that trend for now might be done. But we have got a nice, and that's not insignificant. There's about 90 pips beneath or between those two lines. So, but suggests that maybe that's it for right now. Okay, let's have a look at the ASX and others. I see there's a couple of ASX potential trades coming through already. Sorry, let's just get myself sorted here with all the screens, etc. Give me a second. We've actually come off the session highs a little bit, and that might be reflective of that might be reflecting the there we see. So we'll come off the session size a bit. So this was our open. So everything was open by about this stage. We actually opened neutral, and then we sort of saw the buying come in. But we've dropped about 0.2% really in the last hour. But we're seeing a few obvious patterns going on if we look at the stocks to some degree. If we look at resources, so BHP's up, FMG were also up in excess of a percent. We look at some of the banks. We're seeing the reverse in the banks. So we're seeing ANZ down, CBA down about, CBA trading near neutral. One sector which is smashing it out of the ballpark today is healthcare, which has been an underperformer for much of the last few months. But if we look at Sonic, there must be something around that, that's created that. But you can see up 4%. If we look at ResMed, you can see up nearly 4% as well. Ramsey, although it's not in the same category really, up 0.5%. And then again, you can sort of see Rio doing okay, Oz Minerals doing okay. So it looks as though there's Oz Minerals up 1.5%. So it looks as though the sectors that are driving the market higher are resources, with the exception of oil. Not surprisingly, oil surged down on that weaker oil. WPL being in the same place. There you go, just down slightly. We are seeing some buying into Wesfarmers, but not significantly so. Interesting, the other one that caught my eye today, and we've been talking about this for a couple of weeks, waiting for a setup, was Xero, so XRO. And so we're going to have a look at some charts of all of this in a moment. So let's kick things off. Let's move across. Let's just check in on Xero, because as I said, we've been tracking this for a couple of weeks. I've been sort of suggesting that this break over this 200 MA is important after we got that. We've really sort of been in downtrend since the back end of December. But again, context is important. Put it on a weekly chart, you can just see where this is. So if we just move that out a little bit. We can even put some fib lines on just for fun. So there we go. There's some fib lines. So essentially what it did on the weekly chart was it retraced to the 38.2 fib, and now we're bouncing up. So a potential price target on zero, if you like fib lines, would be around about this 128 level, between 128 and 130. On the daily chart, if you use the same fib lines, you can see there's a 38.2 fib, bounced off that. There we've got some interest there. Now it's pushed higher significantly in the last week or so. We'll put this on a line chart. We suggested that this, for aggressive traders, that this break through the 200 MA and that pivot low there was of interest. And sure enough, what happened is it broke through, came back tested this, and now is on a roll higher again. This also, where we are now, is the high that we hit on the 1st of March. So it looks to be some nice, some very interesting upward momentum in this as a stock. This is our chart of the day for today. You can see though it's off its highs a little bit, as with the market generally, so it'll be worth checking in on, see where this closes. But fundamentally, this is a strong company, and so not surprised to see it up there. If we look at APT, let's just get rid of some of these lines and stuff. There we go. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change this, because this is a 50 MA, which I like to have, but I'm just going to change this to a different color just so you can tell. So just for reference, for those of you who are newer, I usually use a 10 and a 20 and then just a 50 on there as well. But you can see zero is really triangular. After we bounce off that 200 MA, market doesn't know where to go with this. Really, that 121 level looks important to the upside, based on that chart there. Looking at some of the healthcare stocks, so we didn't actually check in on Fisher Paykel, but you can see strong. Well, you can see we had that strong move last week. We talked about this. That looked like a strong reversal, but appeared to be using the 50 MA as or EMA as resistance here. So we may have paused for a moment and underperforming in this sector, because if we look at Sonic, again, I'm not sure whether, but that's a really bizarre candle. So we've got a big spike up, okay? So we've got that move on open of around about 3.5%, went up to 6%, and ever since then it's just sold off. So the whys and wherefores of that I am not sure of, but this is a key level where we're trading at now, around about that 34.83. But that's not a compelling candle at all in terms of potential action. Look at ResMed, looks a lot stronger technically than Sonic, despite that big move up. You can see why here. We've got a level of interest, which was support here, resistance here, and here. Looks as though we've got having a real push at that to the upside. The only thing that would twitch me about ResMed is you may be limited to the 200 MA and upside, so around about 2%. But if you take that out as an issue, you can see how strong that candle is. So that's looking as though it could be about to pop, and maybe worthwhile keeping an eye on over the next couple of days to see if there's any continued momentum goes into that. Let's see catch up. So Sequel one that we're keeping an eye on, but really this is flatlined over the last week or so. It looked as though after that pullback there, we had a double bottom formation going on, but really it hasn't, or it's failed to break that with any vengeance. So we're sort of stuck at 27.57. With some strength in the retail sector. There's JB Hi-Fi. Seems to have paused at this level over the last couple of sessions. This is one again we referenced last week as retail was getting very strong. We liked it when we had this MA cross here and it broke through $49. But you can see now that previous resistance here is being honored right now, so we've got to be patient with this. Kogan, yes, I can have a look at Kogan, also in that sector. Again, we've been waiting for this to see if it would reverse. So I had this significant downtrend here. Looked as though it may be forming a rounded bottom type of formation, but really in the last couple of sessions have been pretty miserable. So leave it well alone from a technical point of view. Now, Bobby, AGL Energy. Ross, I see your ALG is doing well. AGL Energy, nice pop. Look, if you were on the ball with it, so from a breakout trade point of view, we saw it there. Okay, we saw it yesterday, break 990. If you got on this, congratulations. Would have been an aggressive trade, nevertheless. Actually, probably there, probably about 985. It would have been fairly aggressive, but nevertheless, we had a breakthrough yesterday, and we've got follow through on that. That looks pretty strong, whichever way you slice it. It's managing to hold its gains despite the overall market pullback. We are pretty near the highs of the session. The tricky thing with this is, of course, if you are in it already, at what point do you profit take? If you're not in it, or if you're not in it already, is it worth getting in? Really difficult to get a clear positive picture. To answer any of those questions, you would imagine there would be a pause at around about 1147, so still plenty of upside in this. Worst scenario, I'm not. Was there any news that pushed this up, Bobby? Do you know? You're a good man, good man. So there could be. You can see how there was a pause at this stage here. So as it was sort of going down for 3 or 4 candles there. So we may get it just pausing here. So possibly a profit target just below that 1083, maybe about 1085 would appear to be logical technically if we use half an ATR. Certainly if you're in it down there, you might say thank you for the market gift, and away you go, because that is a very healthy 6% move up in 24 hours. It's not often the market gives you a gift like that, but yeah. So logically, technically, that would make it's always a tricky thing with a profit target situation. You notice how this is a 50 EMA. I don't know how relevant this is, but just bear that in mind. But logically, there could be a pause here. So as a trader in this sort of situation, you've got, do I just rip it off, say thank you very much, Mr. Share Market, and then look to re-enter if it subsequently breaks its next level as a new trade? Or do you tighten the stop really tight under this? Now, the problem with certainly at this stage, you'd be tightening a stop perhaps up to around about this, possibly around about this 1030 level as a minimum. So you're locking in some profit already. If it's getting close to this, then you may even take it even higher. So your choices are twofold. You either rip it off and then potentially re-enter there, or as it gets closer, you trail that stop tighter and tighter, just in case it tips over. Because it could tip over quite quickly with such a sharp up move. But thanks for popping that chart, because there's a couple of good things that brings up in terms of not only how you would manage it, but not only in terms of how the chart is itself and how that looks attractive technically, but also in terms of giving some general or some things to think about in terms of your plan when you're faced with that situation. Resources, although they're having a good day, you can see that's on the back of a very miserable run. So that's BHP down into correction territory, despite the positivity of today. So this, even if you're just seeing those, Oz Minerals has broken the mold a little bit. So Oz Minerals has held well, and this is a nice level we're at now. You can see this, we've had one candle close above that in the last 6. So of the 2 resource stocks, technically that one looks stronger, looks a bit premature to get into BHP, even though there may or may not be a bounce off that level. The travel sector is looking a bit weak. That's been one of our favorites over the last few weeks. So we can see that just dribbling down a little bit. So we'll see this across the board. Obviously, there was a potential profit-taking opportunity there, but you can see Qantas, Webjet, I think, are the same. So just coming off their highs. But this is after a very, very healthy run-up, just to be fair. But what it's created is a nice, on all of these, it's created a nice level of interest should it start to move higher. So it could be a natural pullback before we push again to the upside. Wesfarmers, just put a Wesfarmers chart on here. This was the other one I was toying with as a chart of the day, because this is a really important level it's trading at today. You can see this will represent a closing high we haven't seen since mid-Feb, if it holds it. But looking at all of this price action we had during December, it could get quite noisy around here. So it may be prudent to wait until we get a break of 51.70 to the upside to get on board with Wesfarmers long. Is there any other stocks that you want me to have a look at, or just quickly flicking through to make sure we've covered all so far? ALG, can it break $1? Ross, you're a bit of a superstar getting in this. Nice spot, got in really well. Can it break $1? It's one of those situations, of course, where it's a look. It's the market. It's the market looking at a nice round number again. $1 on this, with it currently trading at 99.5 cents. Is really interesting, but the momentum in this is tremendous. Let's just take it back a little bit. I don't think there's. So the last time it was at this level was really pre-pandemic. So around about here, you can see how this $1 level looked quite popular. Support there, resistance there. Didn't actually touch the size as it went down, but it is that nice round number. The good thing about this is if it does break $1, you've not actually got much to stop it going up to about $1.11. So up about another 10% from that dollar level. So if you are in this, well, look, it's a will I, won't I around that dollar level. You've obviously got a nice line in the sand. If we just put this on a line chart, you've got a nice line in the sand to put, which I'm guessing was the breakthrough at around about this sort of 90 cents level. You could even suggest, if we bring this right up, maybe take it to the bottom of the previous candle as you stop. So very, very difficult when something goes like this to trail a stop effectively, because there's your 20, there's your 10, absolutely miles away from where it is now from a percentage point of view. So AGL could break $1, and good on you for spotting it. It's a pretty impressive ride higher. So next couple of days could be critical on this, but as I said, technically you could see this up to certainly around that 108 or 110 level if it does break $1. But again, it's a case of, do I rip it off, say thank you very much, wait till it breaks $1, and then move higher? Because of course you're not emotionally attached to ALG. CSL, just back to the healthcare sector again, looking interesting again. We've had a few attempts at this level at 260.70. As you can see there, We last tested this what's that, a week or so ago. But this gets very noisy around here. So in terms of a stock with a lot of upside potential, I'm not sure whether that is one that lights my or floats my boat. So yeah. Any others, guys, that you want me to have a look at? Hang on, let me just find it. I think I've got it on here. We talked lithium stocks. Pilbara Metal's been one, Galaxy being the other, but these have really failed to excite. Didn't break 112 on Pilbara. If we look at Galaxy, again, failed to break that sort of key level there, and has really sort of pulled back down again. From a fundamental point of view, still maybe worth looking at this in the long term, simply because of the lithium electric car connection. But maybe that's already been priced into this to some degree. Looking at the US, just a couple to look at. We've been talking Caterpillar for a wee while now. We suggested back here that $200 was a good place to get in. We obviously did pull back. We had another entry opportunity on a break of this level here, but again, it's really sort of failed to sort of carry on upwards. This obviously benefited from the stimulus, but we're still in an upwards trend channel. So maybe for the medium term, which is where we suggested Macquarie. Yes, I know Macquarie were one of the ones we picked as a long-term interesting place. 152 looks important on this. You can see all the price action on here. No momentum to break through that as yet. Okay, and we've been tracking Microsoft, and Microsoft has failed to break key level to the upside, but neither does it look willing to drop below that. You can see the amount of, just make sure that's up to date, the amount of buying that came into this. So it looks as though there's a 50 EMA support on this, but really resistance on this is probably around that 238, I think, as we talked about before. Okay, one last one, Zoom. This is a will it won't it sort of chart. We've got the 200 MA, which looks really quite important. If we do get a break higher from this, we can, so actually got potentially, if we move higher, we've got a double bottom formation there. Zoom is still trying to find its feet about where its place might be post-pandemic, and so that, but that's one to keep on your watch list perhaps. Okay, last one, because I recognize we're bumper up the time, was BSL. Again, it's one we've been having a wee look at over the last while. Still failing to really sort of challenge that. $19 looks like an important level for BSL. So, and that remains the case. Okay, guys, well, look, I hope that's sort of useful. Let's just have a quick look at Crown. One last one. Come on. Oh. Let's try that again. CWN. Obviously in the news. Whoa. Okay, there's some interesting. That's just yeah. Okay, so Crown. Look, that's just too hard a chart to call, really. But obviously looking fairly healthy. Really difficult to plant your flag anywhere on this. I guess if it gets over 1280, you might get interested in this, but that's a very erroneous candle. I'm not really sure what to do about that, except it is an inside bar. That is, if that holds, and then we get a subsequent red candle, it could be there could be some gap filling goes on there. That's the best I can. That's the best I can do with that sort of chart, I'm afraid. But that inside bar is yeah, take over a bit, yeah. So it could be a buy the rumor, sell the fact sort of thing with this with that chart. Okay, guys. Well, look, just if you're not enrolled for tomorrow's, pretty sure you are. Tomorrow's Inner Circle, we've got the magnetic guys coming along, and that'll be awesome to attend. They're always good value. So I'm just going to put that in chat just so you've got it. There we go. So if you look in chat, you should have it now. So a quick look at questions. Yep, see you, Ross. Cheers, mate. You have a good one. And all of you, trade safe. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow night. And if not, then we'll see you on Thursday at the next session. It's been a pleasure and a privilege. Thank you very much for your participation today. It's always great to have a look at some of your suggestions. And we'll see you soon. Bye-bye for now.